It is a curious and almost universal habit of mankind to close our eyes each night and believe we are entering a state of nothingness. We surrender to the dark and assume that the theater of our mind falls silent. But I must tell you, this is a most profound illusion. For last night, while you slept, a secret theater was alive within you. Its curtain is never drawn. A playwright, far older and wiser than your waking self, was staging a drama in the dark, speaking not in the plain words of day, but in the ancient, symbolic tongue of the soul. And this morning, you arose and forgot your ticket at the door. You walked away from a message meant for you, and you alone a letter from the depths of your own being, written in the forgotten language of images. We have, I fear, mistaken this nightly performance for mere nonsense, when it is in fact the most direct correspondence we have with the hidden self. It is not a random firing of nerves, it is a purposeful speech from the vast, unexplored continent within what I have called the collective unconscious. And to ignore these messages is to tear up the map to our own wholeness before we have even dared to look at it. That it is a curious and almost universal habit of mankind to close our eyes each night and believe we are entering a state of nothingness. We surrender to the dark and assume that the theater of our mind falls silent. But I must tell you, this is a most profound illusion. For last night, while you slept, a secret theater was alive within you. Its curtain is never drawn. A playwright, far older and wiser than your waking self, was staging a drama in the dark, speaking not in the plain words of day, but in the ancient symbolic tongue of the soul. And this morning you arose and forgot your ticket at the door. You walked away from a message meant for you, and you alone a letter from the depths of your own being, written in the forgotten language of images. We have, I fear, mistaken this nightly performance for mere nonsense, when it is in fact the most direct correspondence we have with the hidden self. It is not a random firing of nerves, it is a purposeful speech from the vast, unexplored continent within what I have called the collective unconscious. And to ignore these messages is to tear up the map to our own wholeness before we have even dared to look at it. Don't consider the stage of this theater. It is not bound by the pedestrian laws of time and space that so constrain our waking hours. There you can converse with a figure from your childhood in one moment, and in the next find yourself in a landscape that feels both utterly alien and profoundly like home. The characters that appear are not mere strangers, they are living, breathing aspects of your own psyche. The formidable figure that pursues you is not a monster from the outside, but a fragment of your own power, perhaps your own rage or your unexpressed will, which you have refused to acknowledge in the light of day. The benevolent guide, who offers a key, is a voice of your own latent wisdom, a part of yourself that knows the way, but to which you have not yet learned to listen. Every single element, the winding staircase, the locked door, the vast ocean, the speeding train, is a living symbol, a concentrated expression of a profound psychological truth struggling to be born into your consciousness. This is the alchemy of the dream. It takes the base metals of our daily experiences, our repressed fears, our secret longings, and our unresolved conflicts, and it transforms them into the gold of symbolic imagery. It does this because the conscious mind, the ego, is often too brittle, too frightened to look at these raw contents directly. They are too hot to handle, too overwhelming in their pure form. So the dreaming self, in its infinite wisdom, wraps them in a story. It presents them not as a clinical diagnosis, but as a myth in which you are the central protagonist. The dream is not telling you a fact, it is inviting you to feel and truth. It is an invitation to a dialogue, a summons to begin the most important conversation you will ever have, the conversation with the unknown self that dwells in the interior shadows, the self that holds the keys to your unlived life thought. And so, when you awaken with the faint echo of a strange tale fading from your mind, I would urge you not to simply turn and reach for the day. Instead, lay still for a moment in the quiet dawn. Remember, for the playwright has spoken, and the scenery of your soul is waiting for your conscious eye to give it meaning. The curtain is still open. If you have the courage to look back, and it is here, in the dimly lit galleries of this secret theater, that we inevitably encounter a figure that lingers just beyond the footlights, a presence that makes us uneasy. This is the shadow in the gallery, the uninvited guest of your dreams. He is the one who follows you down endless corridors. She is the face of cold fury you glimpse in a crowd. It is the embodiment of the very thing you swear you are not. We are so quick to label this figure a monster, a nightmare to be shaken off upon waking. But I tell you, to do so is to commit a profound error, for this shadow is not a stranger. He is your forgotten brother. She is your disowned sister. It is the sum of all that you have been compelled to hide away, the anger your civility repressed, the wildness your conformity tamed, the raw vitality your manners deemed unacceptable. This shadow is not your enemy, it is your own unlived life, and it has come to the theater not to harm you, but to be acknowledged. You see, the psyche seeks balance above all else, a sacred wholeness. The brilliant persona we present to the world, that polished mask of competence and agreeability, is only half of a greater truth. For every ounce of light we project, there must be a counterweight of darkness, or the structure becomes unstable, a parody of itself. The shadow is that necessary counterweight. It is the base metal our conscious idealism has rejected. And when we refuse to face it, when we continually push it back into the dusty corners of the unconscious, it does not vanish. It gathers strength. It grows restless. And in our dreams, it appears with ever more terrifying intensity, for it has no other way to scream for attention. It is the painter of your darkest nightmares, but only because you have refused to give it any other pigments with which to work. Its appearance is, in fact, a desperate act of love from the self, attempt to correct a dangerous one-sidedness before it is too late. To meet this shadow, then, is the next great courage. It requires you to turn in your seat within the dream theater and to look directly at this disowned part of yourself. This is not a fight, but a recognition. It is to ask, in the midst of the fear, what are you? Why are you here? What part of me do you represent? In that moment of questioning, the entire dynamic shifts. The monster often reveals itself as a guardian of some lost treasure, your instinctual power, your authentic voice, a passion you buried long ago. The integration of the shadow does not mean becoming monstrous. It means reclaiming the energy you have wasted in keeping it locked away. It is to take that base metal back into your own hands, and through the conscious acceptance of your own flawed and complete humanity, begin the alchemical work of transforming it into gold. This is how we move towards wholeness, not by shining a brighter light, but by making peace with the dark dot. So when you next see that figure in the gallery, do not look away, for it has come not to haunt you, but to reclaim its seat in the architecture of your soul dot. And if we are to understand the script of this hidden theater, if we are to truly converse with the shadow in the gallery, we must first learn its native tongue, for it does not speak in the straightforward prose of business or the simple declarations of our daily lives. It communicates in a far more ancient and potent dialect, the primordial whisper, the language of symbols. This is the forgotten vocabulary of the soul itself, a grammar not of logic but of meaning. When you dream of a serpent, it is not merely a biological creature of the field. It is the embodiment of transformation, of healing, of a dangerous but vital wisdom uncoiling from the depths. The image of a great tree is not just a plant, it is the living symbol of your growth, your rootedness in the past, and your branching toward the future. These are not invented signs, but inherited archetypal patterns, etched into the very substrate of the human psyche, waiting to be red dot. To encounter a symbol in a dream is to stand before a door that leads not to a single room, but to a universe of personal and collective meaning. The conscious mind, in its haste, always seeks a single, literal translation. It wants a dictionary definition: water equals emotion. But this is a grave oversimplification. Is the water in your dream a tranquil lake, reflecting a clear sky, or is it a tumultuous, dark ocean, threatening to swallow your fragile boat? The same root symbol carries entirely different messages, one of peace and introspection, the other of overwhelming, unconscious turmoil. The symbol is a living entity, and its meaning is revealed only in its relationship to you, the dreamer. It is a key, but a key that fits a lock within your own heart, and to force a single, universal meaning upon it is to break the key in the lock. This is why we must approach this language not with the intellect of a scholar, but with the reverence of an archaeologist of the self. We must hold the symbol, be it a key, a child, a falling tower, or a forgotten room in a house you thought you knew, and we must allow it to speak. We must feel its emotional weight, its texture, its atmosphere. What does this towering mountain evoke in you? A sense of awe and challenge, or one of dread and insurmountable obstacle? The symbol's power lies in this capacity to condense a vast, complex psychological state into a single experiential image. It bypasses the defenses of the ego and speaks directly to the core of our being, stirring memories and intuitions we cannot access through linear thought. Learning this language is the work of a lifetime, for the lexicon is written in the blood and history of all humanity, yet its most profound definitions are written in the ink of your own unique life. The playwright is relentless and will repeat the same symbolic motif in 1,000 different guises until you finally grasp its meaning. It is the primordial whisper, growing ever so slightly louder with each passing night, patiently teaching you the grammar of your own soul. So listen, not with your ears, but with your whole being, for the symbols are the only maps we have for this interior world. And what, then, is the purpose of this nightly discourse? Why does the self go to such elaborate lengths to stage these symbolic dramas, to introduce us to our shadow, to whisper in this ancient tongue? It is not merely for communication, not simply to be heard. It is for transformation. This entire secret theater is, in its essence, a magnificent alchemical crucible. Its purpose is to take the base metals of your unexamined life, your raw fears, your latent griefs, your forgotten passions, all the leaden weight of your unconscious burdens, and through the profound heat of symbolic engagement, transmute them into the gold of psychological insight. This is the great work performed while you sleep the slow, deliberate turning of suffering into meaning and of chaos into a nascent order. Consider the common dream of being pursued by a terrifying figure. In its raw, base state, this is pure, undiluted fear, a leaden weight upon the soul, a paralytic force that jolts you awake. You can dismiss it as a mere nightmare, and in doing so, you leave that fear untouched, still base and heavy within you. But if you have the courage to take that same dream and place it into the alchemical vessel of your conscious attention, a remarkable change begins. You turn the heat of your awareness upon it. You ask the shadowy pursuer what it wants. You feel the fear, but you also observe it. And in that act, the base metal begins to shift. The fear of the monster transforms into the recognition of a disowned part of yourself. The paralyzing terror becomes a specific, addressable energy, perhaps a rage you have not expressed, a power you are afraid to claim, or a truth you are unwilling to face. The lead of blind fear has become the gold of self-knowledge. It has not vanished, it has been redeemed. This is the opus of the soul, the inner equivalent of the medieval alchemist's quest. Their search for the philosopher's stone was never about physical gold. It was a projected metaphor for this very process of inner transformation. Your dreams provide the raw asterisk prima materia asterisk, the chaotic first matter of your psychic life. The act of remembering, of holding the symbol with reverence and questioning it, is the alchemical fire. And the resulting insight, the release of tension, the sudden understanding of a lifelong pattern, is the fleck of true gold, the asterisk aurum non vulgi asterisk, the gold not of the marketplace, but of the spirit. This is how we become more whole, not by eliminating our darkness, but by finding the value hidden within it, not by fighting our complexities, but by understanding their necessary place in the architecture of the self. The fire is lit each night, and the crucible awaits your gaze. And so we come to understand that these are not random scenes, these nightly dramas. They are not a disconnected gallery of images, but rather the missing pages, the crucial chapters of a singular, living document, the myth you are living. You see, each of us is born into a grand narrative, a story of immense proportions, but we are given it not in a book, but in fragments, delivered piecemeal through the events of our days and the symbols of our nights. We walk through our waking lives, often believing ourselves to be mere spectators, or perhaps victims of a random and meaningless sequence of events. But from the perspective of the soul, there are no accidents, only synchronicities waiting to be understood. There is no chaos, only a pattern of profound complexity, slowly revealing its design. Your life is a hero's journey, and your dreams are the wise elder, the oracle, whispering the next part of the map dot. Consider the archetypal stages of the great myths, the call to adventure, which you may have dreamt of as a looming threshold or a mysterious summons, the refusal of the call, which manifests as dreams of being trapped or paralyzed, the meeting with the mentor, who appears as the wise old man or the guiding animal in your visions. The road of trials is that recurring dream of navigating a labyrinth, of solving an impossible riddle, of facing that very shadow in the gallery. These are not mere fantasies. They are the eternal patterns of transformation, the primordial blueprints for how a human being moves from a state of unconsciousness to one of conscious wholeness. You are not reading this myth, you are living it. Every challenge in your waking life that finds its echo in a dream is the call to cross a new threshold. Every fear confronted in the secret theater is a dragon you were meant to slay, not to flee from. The tragedy of the modern world is not that we have no myths, but that we have become deaf to the one we are unconsciously enacting. We live a story, but do not know its name, and thus we stumble through the pivotal scenes without understanding their purpose. The dream is the corrective. When you feel a profound stagnation in your life, you may dream of a great stagnant water, and the following night a cleansing rain. This is the myth realigning itself. When you are on the cusp of a great psychological birth, you may dream of a found child, a precious jewel in the mud. This is the story telling you that new life, new potential is emerging from the depths. To record your dreams is to begin to compile your own sacred text, to see the heroic pattern of your own existence written in the stars of your own psyche. The protagonist of this story is the self, the total, integrated being you are meant to become, and it uses the language of dreams to guide the ego, the I you believe you are, through the necessary trials. And as we begin to read this sacred text of our own becoming, as we trace the heroic pattern etched in the stars of our own psyche, a most remarkable phenomenon begins to occur at the very threshold between sleep and waking. The dream does not remain confined to the secret theater of the night. It begins to reach out a hand, as it were, into the solid world of day. You dream of a kingfisher, a flash of blue and orange, and upon waking, the meaning eludes you. Yet that very afternoon, walking by the river, a kingfisher darts across your path, a living, breathing symbol that suddenly bridges the two worlds. This is not mere coincidence. This is the synchronistic thread, the subtle, golden filament that weave the tapestry of your inner dream and your outer destiny into a single, meaningful whole. It is the universe, in its profound and mysterious sympathy with the soul, echoing the symbolism of the night in the architecture of the day. This causal connecting principle reveals a world that is far more deeply interwoven than our conventional logic dares to admit. It suggests that the psyche and the material world are not two separate, isolated realities, but rather two different expressions of a single underlying mystery. When a profound shift occurs within, perhaps the integration of a shadow or the acceptance of a new symbolic truth, the outer world often seems to resonate with that change, presenting you with an event, a meeting, or an image that perfectly mirrors your inner transformation. The inner alchemy is reflected in the outer world, not through cause and effect, but through a poetry of meaning. The dream prepares the soil, and the synchronistic event is the sudden, unexpected bloom. To notice this thread is to awaken to a world that is alive with significance, a world that is in constant, silent conversation with the depths of you. The man who dreams of a bear, that great archetype of the instinctual healing force, and then the next day is given a book about bear mythology or stumbles upon the very same animal in a documentary, has not encountered a random event. He has been handed a second copy of the message. The universe is insisting. It is amplifying the whisper of the dream into a chorus, asking him to pay attention to the dormant, instinctual power that is stirring within him. These are the moments that defy rational explanation, yet carry an undeniable weight of truth, a sense of profound personal relevance that strikes directly at the heart. This is the final, breathtaking implication of our nocturnal voyages, that the journey inward is simultaneously the journey to the very center of the world. There is no longer a strict division between the subjective and the objective, for the same patterns that govern the growth of the soul are the patterns that shape the events of a life. To follow the synchronistic thread is to begin to live your myth not just in the privacy of your own mind, but in full participation with a world that is dreaming along with you. And so we arrive at the final, inescapable conclusion. The fundamental truth that underpins this entire nocturnal odyssey, this is the unavoidable conversation. Your soul, in its profound and persistent wisdom, will continue to write you these letters. It will dispatch its emissaries as shadows in the gallery. It will encode its counsel in the primordial language of symbols. It will stage the great myth of your becoming, and it will weave these threads of meaning through the very fabric of your waking life. It will do this with relentless patience and with a creativity that far surpasses our conscious ingenuity. You may dismiss the first letter as a nonsensical dream, and the second as a strange coincidence, but the third will be more urgent, and the fourth more vivid still. For the self seeks above all else to be known, to be integrated, to become whole. And it will not be silenced. You can, of course, attempt to refuse this correspondence. You can burn the letters upon waking. You can fill your days with such noise and distraction that the whisper becomes inaudible. You can rationalize the symbols into oblivion and dismiss the synchronicities as chance. But the cost of this refusal is a life lived at the surface, a fragmentation of the spirit, a sense of being perpetually lost in your own story. The unintegrated shadow will project itself onto your neighbors, creating enemies where there are none. The unheard symbols will fester, their energy turning inward, manifesting as anxieties and compulsions whose origins remain a mystery. The myth will be lived unconsciously, a hero stumbling blindly through the trials, never understanding the purpose of the journey. This is not a dialogue that can be closed by unilateral decision. The playwright does not retire. The messages will find a way, perhaps in a recurring motif that haunts your nights, or in a life circumstance that forces you to confront what you have long avoided. The energy of the self demands expression, and if it cannot flow through the channel of conscious understanding, it will erupt in other, often more disruptive ways. The conversation is happening, whether you choose to participate or not. Your only choice is whether you will listen and reply, or remain a silent and perhaps bewildered recipient of a correspondence you did not ask for, but which holds the entire meaning of your existence. The invitation then is not to a passive observation, but to a courageous and active engagement. To take up the pen and begin your reply dot, and so we stand now at the threshold between two worlds, the brilliant, logical day and the deep, symbolic night. We have wandered the secret theater and understood that we are both the audience and the protagonist. We have faced the shadow in the gallery and discovered it holds our untapped power. We have learned the primordial language of symbols, deciphered the alchemy of our own transformation, and seen the golden thread of synchronicity weaving our inner myth into the outer world. This is the great awakening, to realize that you are not a passive spectator in your own life. You are the living myth. You are the alchemist. You are the hero of this story. The dreams are not mere echoes. They are the blueprint. The challenges are not obstacles. They are the trials that forge the soul. And the gold, you seek that sense of wholeness, of purpose, of unshakable meaning, is not hidden in some distant land. It is being forged in the crucible of your own psyche every single night. So let this be the night you make the irrevocable decision to become a conscious participant in your own becoming. Do not let another sunrise find you having forgotten the message. Do not let another letter from your soul go unanswered. Step onto the stage of your own life with courage. Hold your shadow as a brother and speak the ancient language of your dreams as your native tongue. The world does not need more sleepwalkers. It needs individuals who are truly, fully awake to the colossal power within them. Go forth now, not with mere hope, but with the certainty of the alchemist who knows the lead is already transforming. You carry the map. You speak the language. You are the one you have been waiting for. Good fortune on the magnificent journey ahead. Thank you.